Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, All Things Logic. I'm Jeremy Haas. Today we're gonna work on the track we worked on last time where we comped a DI bass track, and we're gonna build our bass, gritty, subby, huge, fat metal bass sound. Rock, hard rock, whatever you want to call it. That's what we're after today, okay? This is part of my Build This Song in Logic Pro series. So let's get started. Yeah. Alright guys, so in the last video we created ourselves a drummer track, okay? I showed you guys how, that was the first video actually, I showed you guys how to do that. And then the second video we created ourselves a DI bass track. I showed you guys how to use tape folders, how to comp all that, okay? Today we're going to go ahead and build our bass sound. So right here is, it looks like this is what we created last time. I went ahead and finished the rest of it. But real quick, let me hit play so you can kind of hear what the bass tone we're going to be building today sounds like with the rest of that mix. All right, so and it's not finished. The guitars are lacking. They, you know, I just laid these down as a guitar guide track to kind of build this bass mix too. Okay, and I do my process different each time. And the reason I'm doing drums first, then bass, then guitars is because that's how I go about mixing in stuff. Usually, is I'll mix in the drums and then sometimes the bass and then vocals and then guitars, that kind of thing, or I'll mix it up every different time. But I usually like to go in that process. And I'm a guitarist by, like, I started out with guitars and vocals 30 years ago, but I've been playing bass about as long also. So like I know my guitars well enough where I can lay down bass tracks first without a guitar track and it will fit with guitars. But if you're a bassist, you probably might want to have your guitarists lay their tracks down first. But I always re-record that bass part to drums no matter what, to make sure that bass hits with that kick. It's just really important they lock in together. And yeah, so it's different for everyone. You can do it any way you want. But anyway, so like I said, what we're going to do today is we're going to build this. I know we just last time just worked on one DI bass track, but that's what it looked like this. Basically, that's what this is here. And what you can do now is, if you still have those plugins from last time, go ahead and get rid of them. I like to have a clean slate with a DI track. So, but I went ahead and built all these so you kind of copy what I did to get this sound, okay? Because one thing about heavy bass guitar is it's really hard to get that gritty, awesome heavy bass sound with just Logic Pro's bass amp designers and their like clip distortion and stuff. It really doesn't sit well. And that's why I like to, if you can afford it, get yourself a Sans amp and go in through your audio interface, the pedal, the Sans amp, not a pedal, but yeah, it's kind of like a pedal, but it's a box, a preamp, I don't know what it's called exactly, but yeah, Sans amp, check it out. But that's just like, it's all done for you. It's got it's what a lot of people, almost like thousands and thousands of people have used that on their records, just straight DI, you know. But anyways, that's if you're just got Logic Pro, I'm showing you guys how to just use Logic Pro stock plugins for this, okay? So what I did first is to create these three tracks. It's the same DI track, the one that we worked on last time. And what I did is I lit up these, and I just duplicated these tracks. So I first off, I just clicked this 3 times, or you can hit Command D or 2 more times and create 2 more. But make sure there's no plugins on it, okay? We're going to add those in now. And then you can either copy and paste these to each track, or you can hold down Shift and left click and pull these down, and it'll pull down and make all these three tracks the same, okay? And so once you've got that, I like to name this bass DI sub, this bass DI tone, and this bass DI grit, okay? And you can go ahead and stop and do that if you want. And what do I do next? Oh, what I do next is I light up these bad boys, or I hit Shift, click on all these, make sure these are all lit up, and I just for hell of it, I'll light all these up. It doesn't really matter. You just gotta have these lit up right here, okay? And like that, hold down Shift and left click, and then what I'll do is I'll go over here, which is, I've got something sitting there right now, but it'll look like this. It'll say group right here, and you'll click on that bad boy right there. I'm gonna click on this just to, you want to do it on this side though, but I'm gonna click on this just to show you. If you haven't done this before, it probably says group 1 new. Mine will say, because I have a bunch that says group 6 new. And you'll click on that, okay? And what that'll do is it'll bring you to this and then you could type in bass guitar if you want. Anyways, so once you've done that, that will create yourself a group, and then just you can click on these settings here. Just make sure that you go and turn on group active and editing on. Click on editing, okay? The rest should already be on. And that way, so if you go and accidentally bump this guy, it'll pull them all together, okay? So it will make sure that they don't go out of phase with each other. If they go out of phase, you just defeated your whole purpose. It'll sound horrible, okay? So, and then what this is just a folder stack right now. I'm just using this as you can see, this just collapses it. It doesn't do much except collapse. It's like a organization tool, and you can mute this whole track at once, and then you can use this volume you can set all your different tracks here, blend them, and then you can use this volume to turn it up and down instead of trying to do each one each time to turn it up and down. That can waste a lot of time. And the way I do that is I just left click on these three right here, then right click, and then I go to create track stack. And you could probably just pick folder stack right now. Summing stack is more for, so you can process all of them at the same time, and we'll do that later on. And it's like sending them all to a bus, basically. I'll show you how to do that later on. But a folder stack is fine for now, just so you can, look at it. It helps you, once you get a lot of tracks going on, it helps you collapse these bad boys, okay? So next what we're going to do is we are going to bass DI sub. That's what we're going to work on first. It's just really easy to do. It's really simple, so we'll get that out of the way first. And so you're probably not going to hear this one much, because until you're listening to this in a car, once you got your mix down in a car or you got a good stereo, then you'll feel the sub. You're supposed to feel it, not hear it, okay? It's meant to be felt, not heard. But on headphones or on your phone, you're definitely not going to hear this much, but you're going to want that for your final mix, okay? This is super important, okay? And next is our DI bass tone. And I think I've said this already, but I'm going to say it one more time. The reason we do 3 different tracks here is because we don't want this all these on one track trying to fight and cut through the mix, okay? We'll have to push it too hard to cut through all of them, and then it'll sit on top of the mix, or too quiet, it'll sit behind it. So the reason we do this is so it splits up the different areas so it sits well in the mix, okay? So anyways, bass sub we're going to start with. Now I got a gain plugin on mine. Well, before I start with gain, before you put any plugins on here, go get yourself a level meter. And where you find that is down in metering, okay? And you're going to go level meter mono right there. Click on that, and it will look like this. And then you could turn this bad boy to peak RMS. It'll usually start stock on, default on peak. So peak RMS, and then you're good to go, okay? I'm going to go ahead and turn these off real quick. Well, yeah, actually, let me show you. No, I'm gonna go ahead and turn these off real quick, and I'm gonna solo this bad boy here. Okay, check this out. Okay, as you can see, I recorded mine at a very quiet. Like most people record theirs anywhere between, I say passive basses and passive guitars, anywhere between -12 and -6 is a good area for your peaks anyways. But for active bass guitars and active instruments, I like to record my levels a little bit quieter. Anywhere between -15 and -12 is a good area, because if you record too loud of a volume with active instruments, they get really boxy sounding. I don't know if you had that problem before, but I seem to always have that problem with active instruments. If I pump if I go through that high Z instrument channel with my active bass guitar, and then I've got that active, that 9-volt blowing that, it really can kill the sound. So I always record at a quieter volume. And so yeah, it just helps out a lot. And then I use a gain volume to pump that back up to hit my plugins at the correct volume. You don't have to do it this way, but that's how I do things, okay? And so if you had followed my last and you used an active instrument, active bass on my last video, that's what we did. Like I said, you don't need to do that, but you just correct that by using a gain plugin and turn that up. And so level meter works this way. So you saw when I hit play, hit this to clear these, and you saw. So that's with my gain plugin. So that's exactly right where I want it. And especially when it hits the RMS. I know I skipped what I was saying, but the hits RMS, we want -18, around -18 when it's going into any of our other plugins, okay? Not all of them, just when it goes into especially like if we ever use a bass amp or any tone, like channel EQ or something, we want that -18. Then after that, it doesn't matter where that RMS is, as long as our peak is not past -6. We're gonna leave some headroom for mixing and the rest of our song later on, okay? So next, I got that gain plugin. I turned it up to 7. You can find that in the gain plugin. You can go down and find it in utilities and right here, okay? So now I got that on. I've got it hitting at the right level. And make sure when you're when you're doing this, when you're adding plugins and gain staging, that you put it on the heaviest part of your song. And we'll just say this is the heaviest part of the song, okay? So make sure you go through your whole track and listen to where it hits the loudest and peaks up the highest. Then just repeat that part and then use that to add your gain plugins on, or all your plugins on, okay? And then we'll go from there. So now that we know that's sitting around -18, that's good. We're gonna go add ourselves a channel EQ, and we're gonna go to EQ here and channel EQ and grab that bad boy. Now, look, this is what I did to create that bass sound, because without it, it's going to sound like this. Okay, and another thing, my bass sounds a little out of tune-ish to me and a little flat. That's because my bass strings are a little old. They're about 3 weeks old, 2 weeks old. And that's enough to get them sounding bad, honestly. Like, I will clean this up later, but it's always a good idea if you're going to be recording, just get yourself some new bass strings. They're pretty expensive. I mean, they can get expensive, especially if you change them as much as I like to. Mine are a little late, so I wasn't able to record with them. So it is what it is. So anyways, for the sub, this is what I do for my sub. It's not meant to be heard, remember. So I go and use the low pass filter, and I click that on, and you can move this with this right here, okay? Turn it your scroll on your mouse, okay? And that's, I'll bring that high pass filter all the way up to about where are we at here? About 150 is a good area. We don't want to hear any of that gross sound, that because we're not putting a bass amp sim on this one. This is just a sub. We're just using that low end, so we don't want any tone out of it. We don't want it to sound pretty. It's supposed to be just felt, okay? Then I turned off all the others I'm not using, and I'm using this guy. I'm using a bell filter here, and about 72 hertz, 70 hertz around there is a good place, and I'll pump that. It depends on you, if your strings, what strings you're using, what kind of bass, but I'll pump that, okay? Same with this low pass shelf, this low shelf, I mean, is I'll pump that. And then I'll use a high pass filter here, and I'll cut off this low, that's for the kick area. And so make sure you can copy these if you want. And then I'll use a light compression on this to pull that low end together so it's not all spread out. And that's what I did right here, okay? And I use an opto always for sub or anything like that. I'll use opto usually. Okay, and you can copy these settings here, and I put these on one at a time. Real quick, again, I'm using my level meter through this whole thing, as you'll see. Watch it. Okay, so we're back to let me clear that. 18. It should be around 18. Okay, and then we'll put on that. So I had to turn down the output, the final output, so it didn't get too loud. Okay, and I can go even. I think it jumps down to -6. No, that's good. I can actually go a little bit louder, but that's fine there. Okay, and so you can copy these again, and so we're good. We're golden right there. That's exactly where I want it. Okay, because I need some headroom for mixing later. Okay, that's perfect. Again, it's meant to be felt, not heard again. I keep saying that, but it's the truth. Okay, so now we've got that. We can go ahead and turn that off, and we can go ahead and we're going to work on our bass tone. Okay, so this is where you're going to want to grab a bass amp. This is the sound of the bass guitar, what it's going to sound like basically. Okay, now again, if I'm copying all three of these and you record it, you're using active and you recorded it quieter and you're using a gain plugin, you can use the same amount a gain plugin on the same ones because it's the same DI track. Okay, even if you want to use a gain plugin and you recorded a passive guitar, something a little too quiet, and you want it to, I use this always to make sure it hits around my my peaks hit around, or my RMS hits around -18, like I was talking about when it goes into my bass amp always. Okay, so again, I'll bring up the level meter. I showed you where to find that. So where you can find your bass amp, you can go to amps and pedals, or right here, amps, bass amp, and go ahead and click on that bad boy, and it will bring up this guy right here. Okay, and I'm using a generation of flip top, and these are great for and also I also like a lot. I like it for metal music, heavy metal music, rock, that kind of stuff. I like to use this classic comp also. Okay, check that out if you want to. But today I'm going to use the flip top. Okay, and so then one more thing. Let me bring that up again. Let me get rid of this one. Okay, check out. So this is you want to use this right here. You want to use all this to create that bass tone, start to create that bass tone that you want it to sound like. Okay, and use all this, and don't worry about this yet. Okay, so as you're doing this, just do whatever you want. Don't worry about your peak or RMS as you're fixing your tone of your bass. Once you got what you like it to sound like, then you'll use your final output to make sure that this isn't too loud or too quiet. Okay, obviously that's a little too loud, so I could turn that down a little bit. but I'm not going to because that's close enough. I don't want to mess with my stuff because I've got it set up here correctly, but you might want to turn that down a little bit. Negative 5.6 is still okay. A little bit past negative 6 is fine. We still got plenty of headroom. We don't want it to get to 0 or too far past. We don't want it past negative 3, basically, okay? But it's good to go around negative 6 so you can keep adding plugins on and not worry about it jumping too high. But you can always use the final output to fix that, okay? Again, you can change the sound a little bit here. That's for the microphone speaker. You can change your microphone. I like the Sennheiser 421 right here, but they got a condenser and another dynamic microphone there. And also you got flip top, classic top, modern top. You've got your different bass cabinets right here. You can check that out, or you can just go to custom right here, or you can go up here like I like to and just get a preset. It's quick, you know. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to compress this signal. We're going to compress it a little bit. So next is our compressor. I'm going to pull that back out. I'm going to use the opto again for this. You can use a FET, a studio FET if you want to, or you know, a VCA. But I prefer to go with the opto usually for any bass guitar. Okay. So now we've got the bass done. I'm going to take this away. Now check this out. Okay, right on spot, okay? You can copy all this if you want, and then I threw a channel EQ on here. And I showed you where to get that. I didn't show you where to get the compressor, sorry. My bad. In the last one, I didn't show you to get the compressor. The compressor is going to be right, I don't think I did. Yeah, compressor is going to be right here. Click on that, okay? And then this is going to come up. My bad. This is going to come up, and you can choose this one right here, okay? And you can see I've got all the settings here like this. They've got makeup gain is at 0.5. I got ratio 3:1. I got threshold. You know, and you got the knee. This is a softer knee I'm using on here. It tacks 26 milliseconds and 110 milliseconds for the release, okay? And yeah, I'm not using anything else. I'm using autos off and auto gains off and the autos off also, okay? And again, I don't think I showed you on the sub, my bad. Here's the other one. These are the different, the threshold, the ratio, 3:1, makeup, 100, 41, and a medium knee, okay? So there we go. Okay, back. Okay, so you saw how to do that. We got that. So my tone is basically complete here. Oh, let me show you the channel EQ again. I'm using the low pass or high pass filter right here to 51 hertz, 36 dB slant, and a Q 71. Okay. Okay, and then I'm not using a low shelf, but I'm using this bell filter to just cut the mids a little, the low mids a little bit, because that can get really muddy. And then I'm using about 755 hertz here, a boost, and another boost right here. Okay, you can fix those down there. Here's my low pass filter. I'm just cutting a little bit off the high end, so there's no real bad clankety. I like clank, but not the really highs. That's for the cymbals. This area is for the cymbals. This is for the kick drum. Remember, okay? That's why we do this. Okay, so check it out. Those two together, okay? All right, so next is our grit track, okay? So this is not supposed to sound good by itself either. Check this out. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, again, you know where to find the level meter, and we are going to start gain staging and putting these on now, okay? So this is the clip distortion. Remember the gains where it's at. So let me hit that so you can see where that's at. Okay, that's whoa. That's fine. Okay, clip distortion is next, okay? Where's my gain at here? Let me see where my gain is. Yeah, it's at the right level. Okay, so clip distortion. Okay, so right here, you can find this bad boy. It sounds bad by itself. Clip distortion, you can find out distortion under clip distortion right here, okay? Click on that bad boy and it'll look like this. And I like to have my drive not too high, just slightly. Later on, this is just kind of like to get us started. Later on, we will actually use parallel compression on all these tracks, at least a couple of them, and to get that, to punch it, give it some more life to come through later on. And also we'll use parallel grid or parallel saturation, distortion, whatever you want to call it, to bring this alive. We might not barely use this one, okay? This is just for now to build the rest of our mix, okay? It just doesn't sound that great, I think. Using parallel grid, it's a lot better effective wave, I believe. So anyways, this drive I keep pretty low, and then I set the mix to 100% and low pass filter, I turn that on to cut out those lows because it'll break up the sound of the distortion. We don't want lows going into that at all. And high shelving, turn that up there to 53 hertz or 5,000 hertz, 53 whatever hertz. So and output gain, you use this to level this to make sure this is the right. And that's perfect. That's what I want, around -18 going into my bass amp, okay? So next is my flip top again. I have this slightly set a little different than the other one, so you can check this out. And I use this to make sure that's at the right level. Okay? And now I'm not worried. I'm just worried after this, hitting all the rest of these plugins, I'm not worried about the RMS so much. I'm worried more about the peak, okay? So that's good. I've got that where I've got it. I've got the lows turned down a lot on this, and I'll turn it down even more with our EQ later on, okay? So we've got those two, and then we're going to add on a little compression. Now I use a studio FET on this, okay? And I hit this a little harder. I use a 4:1 ratio on this. I use a 16 threshold, -16. I use a little bit of makeup gain here, and I like to have my attack at 16 milliseconds and my release around 80 milliseconds, okay? And then I'll use this as the final output to make sure that it sets here correctly. And that's a little loud, but that's okay. I'm not going to mess with it too much right now. We'll fix it. This is fine. It's not too loud because -5.6 is not bad at all, actually. That's we still got a lot of room to work with, okay? So next is a channel EQ. And I go and cut the lows a little bit more and boost the mids again. So you can see what I did here. I use a high pass filter here and cut that. And then I cut the mids again. And then I added boost here at 730 hertz, and I added a boost at 300 or 3000 hertz, okay? And then I also cut it. You want to cut a bunch with your low pass filter. You want to cut a bunch of your highs here. It'll make it too fizzy, a gross distortion. You don't want that fizziness, so we use that. Cut that real good, you know? Okay? And then use this as to make sure that's not too loud or too quiet coming out of here, okay? Perfect. All right, cool. So there are the 3 different ones we've got. So together we've got this sound here. And all together we've got so again, it's not the bass is never with these plugins and actually bad strings that I have, a couple of weeks old, is not going to sound great by itself. But in the context of the mix, it sounds really good. So yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful. In the next couple videos, I'll show you. We'll start laying down guitars actually. Okay, I'll show you guys how to record with using a DI box to split your signal, so you can record with a real amp and a DI signal at the same time. So you can actually in one take get these 2 tracks here. And then we make that our left ear, and you can blend using a DI track. You can put amp sim on it and blend it with your real amp, or you can just reamp your amp if it didn't turn out good when we record it with that DI signal. Always do that. Get a DI signal with your real amp, especially so you can use flex time later on to put everything in sync with yourself if you need to. You need that DI track to use flex time on. It won't work on this big fuzzy distortion track, okay? Anyways, I'm Jeremy Hawes. I'll see you guys on the flip side. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. That leaves it wide open. See you guys. Yay.